Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for coming out and sharing your evenings with us this evening. And thank you so much to our artist, Sabrina Nelson, for being so generous to come all this way and share her beautiful work with us. I'm Denise Fanning. I am the Arts and Exhibitions Coordinator here at CMU Libraries. And thank you so much to CMU Libraries for hosting Sabrina's exhibition and this event this evening. And also thank you to our assistants who will be back in the booth tonight, keeping everything running smoothly, hopefully, and running our live stream, Steph and Olivia. And all of those of you who are joining us via live stream, welcome to you as well. Please write in the comments if you're having any trouble hearing or having any issues, and we will try to address them. Okay, I'd really like to begin this evening by recognizing that here in Mount Pleasant and at Central Michigan University, we are residing in territory that is part of the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary land of the Anishinaabe peoples of Mount Pleasant. We specifically recognize this as the land of the Saginaw Chippewa Indian tribe. For those joining us via live stream tonight, or for those of you in the audience who reside elsewhere, we urge you to take the necessary time to learn about the land where you currently find yourself and the indigenous peoples who have lived and continue to live on those lands, and to recognize the land with an expression of gratitude and appreciation to those upon whose territory you now reside, as a way of honoring the indigenous peoples who have been living and working the land from time immemorial. It is important to understand the long-standing history that has brought us to reside on this land and to seek to understand our own place within that history. We are grateful. So I am so excited to get the opportunity to introduce you to Sabrina Nelson this evening. I have had the pleasure of knowing Sabrina since 1999, when I first started teaching at the College for Creative Studies in Detroit, where Sabrina was and remains on staff as a phenomenal and enthusiastic admissions recruiter and counselor. And you can correct that if I'm giving you the wrong title.
I just call myself admissions dinosaur.
She was such a warm, welcoming light of a human to me when I entered campus as a nervous, young, fresh out of graduate school sculpture instructor, and she remains that for everyone who enters that campus. Sabrina is a person who truly embodies art in every aspect of her life and her being. She is a living example of what it means to live as art, to live through art, and to live with artful attention to every aspect of her daily life. She has a motto that you might hear her say tonight too: I am my first canvas. And as you can probably tell, or will be able to when she gets up here, even as she walks down the street or into a room, everywhere she goes, she just exhales an aura of artfulness and artful care to her own self and with the way that she interacts with others. Her presence is just an aura of all things art. She brings art into the world not only through the obvious places, like through her striking and expressive drawings, paintings, installations, performances, and large-scale murals, but also through her interactions, through her social media, through her teaching, and through her community outreach. If you know Sabrina, or if you follow her on Instagram, which you should all do, Sabrina Nelson 67, then you will also get to see the art that she brings into her everyday activities. How she brings art to her meals, to her breakfast table, which is always a pictorial display of fruits and vegetables, nuts, grains, seeds, fresh flowers, incense, music, and just the general air of artful care. You'll see how she brings art to her bathtub, which she frequently fills with the spent blossoms and petals of her breakfast table flowers, and with beautiful bath bombs and all kinds of emerging colors. You'll see how she lifts up and celebrates other artists, other women, her family, her local arts community. And you'll also get to witness her consistent and vital art of tending to the creative needs of the self and to the essential care of her own self in order to best serve those around her. Sabrina feeds the arts in so many ways, not the least of which is also through the students that she teaches at the Detroit Institute of the Arts and the students she guides at the College for Creative Studies. To her students and potential students, she brings enormous enthusiasm and encouragement for pursuing the act of being creative, for the act of making, and the act of committing to sharing one's unique voice proudly with the world. Everyone needs a Sabrina cheering on their expressive potential and their best version of themselves. Now, a bit of Sabrina's biographical history. Sabrina Nelson was born in the wake of the '67 rebellion in Detroit, Michigan. So for those of you who she talked to today, and she was giving the ages of her children, and your minds were like doing quick math because you can't imagine she's older than her oldest child. Now you know her birth year. She's a painter by degree from Detroit's College for Creative Studies. Influenced by the Yoruba religion, as well as Eastern and African philosophies, Sabrina's work is a combination of spirit, motion, and intimacy. She's not ever limited by two dimensions, despite the fact that her show here is largely two-dimensional. The scope of her work also includes sculpture, performance art, objects, installations, and murals. Sabrina has been a professional artist for over 35 years and an educator for nearly as long. As a studio art teacher at the Detroit Institute of the Arts, she lectures and performs art demonstrations. She is also on staff at the College for Creative Studies, as I mentioned, where she works hard at motivating and preparing students to pursue art degrees in Detroit, some of whom have gone on to be highly esteemed, very famous artists. Sabrina has a good eye for who's got great potential. She has lectured on the preservation of Black feminism in art at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History in Detroit. She is a guest curator at both the Carr Center and the Music Hall Performing Arts Center. For over 30 years, she has judged art competitions, curated numerous art talks and exhibits, and conducted interviews of guest artists for the City of Detroit's culture video channel, My Detroit Cable. Her work has been exhibited at the Detroit Institute of the Arts, the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History, the Museum of Contemporary Art Detroit, and the African American Art and Culture Complex in San Francisco. Sabrina's work has been exhibited in many states throughout the country. Her work is in the permanent collection of the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History and private collections across the U.S. She has also shown work as part of the Art Basel Miami and as well at the American University in Paris. Most recently, Sabrina received a highly coveted Kresge Foundation Artist Grant, and she is currently completing her term as a Kresge Fellow. And finally, a big announcement was recently made that Sabrina was selected by the esteemed national organization, Women's Caucus for Art, as the recipient of the 2022 President's Award for Art and Activism. It is such an honor to have Sabrina join us here tonight and share her processes and her practices and her spirit with us. Please join me in warmly welcoming Sabrina Nelson.
I think I did that right. You guys can hear me okay? Mm-hmm. I feel like walking up here like Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder when they like to bang. That was like a great introduction.
I mean, look at the shoes, though.
But for real, I gotta show you these shoes. I got these shoes for my birthday. My birthday was in August, and they have lucite heels, but they reminded me of Frida Kahlo and her. If you've never seen her wardrobe, they found a pair of shoes in her wardrobe not too long ago, and they're on display. But I love these shoes. So I am my first canvas. Thank you so much, Central Michigan. Thank you so much, Denise, Fanning. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming tonight. I was thinking if there were 5 people here, I was good. And I was not including my mom, because she's here, but if that was fine, it was okay. I want to thank the students who came earlier also to visit the gallery, and if you have not visited the gallery, I think this is really a great opportunity for you to see the pieces. But if you have an opportunity to physically put your eyes on the work, it's a different energy, if you will. So thank you for coming, and thank you for stopping by the gallery to see the work. I really appreciate you being here and feeling the energy that I put here for you. Denise invited me to exhibit my works probably in September. And when she said that, I was like, okay, maybe 5, 8 pieces. I wasn't sure.
I think you said 5 to 8.
5 to 8. In my head, I was like, okay, I can do it. And at the time, I didn't know that I was dealing with a vitamin deficiency of B12, which is really energy, right? So I started eating espresso beans. It was great. It was really great. When you're already slightly fiber, you really have a lot of crazy energy, and for some reason, naps were like chocolate all of a sudden. I just wanted to sleep, and so when I gave her the number, she was like, no, I think you're going to need more. And then I started going in artist overdrive, where it was like I had to be at the studio every day and every night. And because of the way I work, I like to document my process because I have a lot of high school students, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders who follow me on Instagram so that they can be encouraged and also learn from what I'm doing. So the works that you'll see in the Who is Medicine is really the layering and also thinking about who those people are to me and how those people are to us. So my introduction to art was not typical or in the traditional way that certain kids are introduced to art from going to museums and there's an artist in the family. It was really about being in a family of makers. I didn't have the title of artist until well after almost high school, but we were makers. So I lived in a house with a big family. My grandmother and great-grandmother made things. So they made the house beautiful. They made the clothes that they wore. And so my first introduction to art was sewing. And so that might be the reason that I have a passion for very colorful fabrics, for really well-made accessories and things that you sort of paint on your body first. And so I would make paper dolls. And so I was a very tactile kid, which meant I liked to touch and build. I made the best mud castles you can imagine. And you learn how to make things when you don't have money to buy art supplies because you don't know about art supplies. You make whatever you can with whatever you have. So I learned how to make things with paper. I learned how to make things with fabric. I learned how to use things that other people threw away, and then I made them beautiful, right? And so thinking about the idea that makers make things beautiful. Like, what would the world be without peacocks like me or like you? What would the world be like without people who created things that sort of distract you from some of the ugliness that happens in the world or presents it to you on a platter that's a little more palatable than it actually is? So as I introduce my work and myself to you, there's a quote by Rumi. If you haven't read The Artist's Statement, I love Rumi, by the way. We're like bros. If you don't know Rumi, please Google Rumi. You guys don't need encyclopedias anymore. You have Google University. Rumi said, I was smart and I wanted to change the world. And I might be messing up the quote a little bit, but that's okay because I take artistic license in that. Yesterday I was smart and I wanted to change the world. Today I'm smarter and I've decided to change myself. Right? And so when I read that, I had already been working on a series called Why You Want to Fly Blackbird. And that's a song from Nina Simone who talks about black women who aren't born with a silver spoon in their mouth and how they move through trauma, pain, and all types of things that happen when you live in big cities with more people and you become a victim of all types of things. You survive, you move through it with gratitude, grace, and grief. And my Blackbird series was about black and brown mothers who had to bury their children because of the racial pandemic. And so I wanted to move just slightly away from that series and talk about illness. We are living through a viral pandemic, right? We're also living through a racial pandemic. And we're also living through an economic pandemic. There are people who feel that money equates to power. And sometimes if you don't have power, you are powerless. And for people who are not wealthy or poor, people consider them not as important. And so I was trying in my work, and I don't like that word because in the words of the great philosopher Yoda, by the way, Yoda's from Detroit if you don't know that. Because I'm telling you, Yoda is from Detroit. You know why? Because Wendy Froud, who graduated from CCS, created Yoda, and the Jim Henson's Puppet Company came to CCS to recruit her. And she worked on, what was the other David Bowie movie? She worked on Labyrinth puppets, and so Wendy Froud created Yoda, so Yoda's technically, what up, though? He's from Detroit. So get that, know that, learn that today. So I don't like the word trying or try because you don't try. In the words of Yoda, Luke, either do or do not. So what I was doing with the Blackbird series was teaching empathy in the work, trying or teaching the idea that we all matter. We're all important, and no being is more important than the others. I said that and earlier to a group of students that we are all putting ourselves in boxes. We somehow identify as white or black or Asian Pacific or whatever we check. And what's really interesting about that, we have to wait until the aliens get here, and then we all gonna be on each other's team. We're gonna be like, sister, I need your help. You know, because they here, and we bleed, and we're all the same, but they're here and they're not like us. And the only way we're gonna find out about being together as one unit is when another group comes and tries to take us out. So I'm just letting y'all know what's coming. But teaching empathy became hard, right? Because there are people who don't value other beings. And so I said, we're not going to stop killing each other. We've been doing it since our existence on this planet. We've been doing it to take over lands, you know, to take over oil or things that we want that is valuable to us, and we will take people out to get it. So I've decided, based on that Rumi quote, that we are sick, and we need healers, and we need healing, and we need to identify ourselves as medicine, right? We are the saviors that we are waiting for. We are the medicine that we need. And so when you are having conversations in your head about your concept, as Nina Simone says, it's an artist's duty to reflect the times that we live in. And so I wanted to talk about this COVID, this sickness, this illness that we have where we don't value, and we're sick, right? How do we heal ourselves? What is medicine, and who is medicine? And thinking about that, I also learned that my grandfather, my father's father, was a medicine man. He was born on a Choctaw reservation, and he had 9 children with my grandmother. He was 19 years older than her, and they traveled throughout the country. And what he did was he created tinctures to take care of people. And he was an elder, which was like a pastor. So he would put up tent churches. He would sell tamales on the road to feed his children and, you know, make money. But he would also sell his medical bags to heal folks. Now, when I grew up on my maternal side, when you were sick, we didn't they didn't take us to the hospital when you were sick. It was sort of like you go in the bathroom, you go in the kitchen, you go in the garden, and they heal you with what they made. Now, some of us over 50, it was our grandmothers, right? And they healed us. Some of you guys go to the medicine cabinet. You go to CVS. You go to the doctor's office if you can afford medical insurance. But we have everything inside of us to heal ourselves. So I wanted to point that out in the work, but I also wanted to point out that I identify us as sick. And I think knowing that, I know a lot of you follow like DC Comics, I think about this COVID as Thanos, right? It's just taking people out. It doesn't matter how much money they have or where they are, who they are, it just takes you out, right? My father died of COVID in 2020. I got a phone call on a Friday that he was asymptomatic. He had no breathing issues. He had no temperature. He didn't lose his taste or smell. On Friday, they told me he had COVID. He was in a nursing home. And on Tuesday, they called to tell me he died. I was like, wait a minute, I just talked to him on Saturday. What do you mean? And at the time, in April of 2020, the governor had shut down all nursing homes because people were bringing it in, and that's the way to protect senior citizens, right? And so I didn't believe it. I was like, wait a minute, I need a picture. I need to FaceTime somebody because it can't be him. If he couldn't, they wouldn't take him at the hospital. They wouldn't take him because he had no issues. And so when I go to places and they want to check my temperature, and I'm like, like if you're watching the Olympics right now, there's one guy who had no symptoms, but he tested positive. And so there are those things that are happening, and I'm like, well, I had to deal with the grief of losing my father and also not grieving in the way that we have been grieving. Like you have a funeral, we get together, we mourn together, we dress a certain way, and then we get to talk. But that was the first time that we had a Zoom memorial, right? And they weren't embalming bodies at that time. So I didn't get to see him. They were like, well, you could freeze him for $10,000 and then add $10,000 for the funeral costs and then add $5,000 for the casket and then do this and that. And I was like, we're not doing any of that. We're going to embalm him and we're going to remember him in the way that I know how to collectively talk to his family, invite them to the Zoom memorial service and let them tell their stories about him, right? And so it was the first time that I'd done that, but it was also medicine to hear stories about my father that I had never heard. Like he did what? He was encouraging to you with your art? He did this, he did that. So that was medicine for me. And it allowed me to grieve in a way that I never thought possible, right? Because I'm used to going to the funeral, the body is there, and you put on your black or your white, and you go through and you have the family hour and the wake, and then you eat the good food, and then you laugh, and then you go home and cry for 3 more weeks, right? That's what I'm used to. But it didn't happen like that. So I became my own caregiver, if you would. I didn't really leave my room almost for a month. And I cooked my food, I took it upstairs, and I prepared the most pretty meals, and I bought myself fresh flowers like twice a week, and I took floral baths before the flowers died. And I documented it because I wanted to be the patient, but I also wanted to remember it when I had hard days and when waves of grief came over me. So I took care of myself in that way, but my siblings also took care of me. They called me, they checked on me. Mom came over, she hugged me, like, it was the time when you were like, I'm not sure if you should come over, I don't want you to hug me, I don't want it, like it was that first thing where we just didn't know. But touch became medicine. When she came over and hugged me, I was like, oh my God, this is so nice to have a hug, right? And so thinking about people as medicine and how people in your family or your close friends can be medicine, that's how this show came to be, right? Rumi also says, if you are not your own healer, you are a fool. Like we have everything in us to heal ourselves. If you don't understand what to do with turmeric or to do with cinnamon, which lowers your insulin levels, turmeric actually takes the swelling out of your body once you charge it with a little bit of black pepper. Animals, when they don't feel well, they eat certain things to heal themselves. If you have a dog, and the dog is sick, it goes out and eats grass, right? So the Choctaw know that if you watch the animals, it's what they eat that is often the medicine. And so I started thinking about that as well. Like food or a farm instead of pharmacy. Like I know a lot of pharmacists and medical doctors that don't take the medicine they prescribe, right? It's sort of do as I say, not as I do. And so just thinking about that as well. And thinking about naturopathic ways of healing ourselves. Movement is medicine, music is medicine, art is medicine. The way I dress makes me feel better. So when I paint myself as my first canvas, when I put these shoes on, I feel like Wonder Woman, okay? When I put on my Frida Kahlo robe, I feel invincible in the way that she, no matter what she was going through, worked. And if you know her story, she was in the bed and they made an easel that she could paint on while she was in the bed. So I think about people who use art, who use reading and poetry, and there's a book inside the gallery that asks you, what is your medicine? So when I leave you today, I want you to think about what is your medicine, who is your medicine, and it doesn't have to be something you take that someone prescribes to you. You are your own healer in that way, and I wanted to show that my siblings are also part of the medicine in my family. The way that I assign them the herbal things, like this is my baby sister Kimberly, is sweet marjoram. They used to give sweet marjoram to babies for a whooping cough, and what do they call it when babies cry? They have a colic. They used to give that to them, right? Because it was soft enough to give to a baby, and it would kind of heal them. These are old folk way medicines, right? And so she is the sweetest being. Like, she's almost like diabetically so sweet. And she's also an architect. She went to Harvard, and she's got all this stuff going on, and she stops in the middle of her baller life to check on folks and take care of them, right? And so I wanted to assign my siblings the herbs that are based on the months they're born in and also who they are in the family to me or to us, like how we serve each other. I feel like humans are put on this planet to honor each other, and if we're not doing that, something's wrong and off, right? Like, how can I honor you? How can I honor you? And I think about my siblings in that way. Like, we all have a role that we're here for. Our assignment is to be here for each other until we're not. Like, nothing is forever. I don't believe in that, and I don't believe in the word perfect. So when I drew them with love, I drew them with color, with layers, and then I gave them an assignment of herbs that are healing. So the concept that I used is thinking about my family members as the medicine that I need, thinking of myself as the medicine. Medicine is always in your mirror. So when you're looking in your medicine cabinet, you see the mirror first. And we can never see ourselves the way we are, right? Because our eyes point forward, if you think about that in the physicality of things. You can't see yourself because your eyes point out this way. The only way we can see ourselves is through a reflection of ourselves or a reflection of how we make somebody else feel, and then they tell us, right? So if you ask someone, describe me, right? They have to describe you because you can't see yourself unless you're looking in something that reflects you. And so I feel like the medicine is in your mirror. That's why I have medicine cabinets in the exhibit that have mirrors that you have to open, but first you have to see yourself. I don't know if you guys get that. That's deep. If you don't want to go deep, let's stay on the surface. I don't want to take you there if you don't want to go. So that's what I'm trying to make sure that I also hear and feel, that I am my own healer. I am my own medicine. I'm medicine to my children. My children are medicine to me, just like you can be the student and the teacher at the same time. And every now and then it's okay to be the student and also to be the teacher. And so with the work that I'm showing, I hope that you will take the concept and fill out the book there, put a sentence in there, and think about what your medicine is. I got some great quotes in the book right now. There's a lot of cats in there. There's a lot of people who feel like cats. The funniest one was, my medicine is Starbucks because it makes me poop, or is pooping after my Starbucks. I was like, this is a boy, because then he wrote, and my girlfriend on there too. I was like, okay. So it's some really great answers. There was a lot of walking in nature. There was a lot of people who really, a lot of people who believe in the scripture and spirituality and God. And so believing in something higher than yourself, that you have a purpose, that was in there as medicine. And a lot in there. Somebody put my mom, somebody put my siblings, a lot of people put my baby. And so our connection to each other is also medicine. So I want you to make sure you sign the book and think about what is medicine to you and who is medicine, but also know that you are your healer and you are here for yourself. And you have everything in you that you need to heal as well. So we're magnificent bodies and creatures that have all these things, you know, antibodies and things like that. You know, when you really get into the science of our bodies, we can heal ourselves by what we eat, but we have to make sure we put the proper things in and not just what we consume through our mouths, what we consume through our eyes, our ears, all of our senses. So that's important too. Like, take your medicine, and that can be movement. Like, if you don't exercise, your heart is not going to do well. Your brain is the biggest part of all of that too. Like reading, seeing, making sure that you have affirmations in your head. I am going to be healed. I am going to be well. I am going to be healthy. I am going to create really beautiful work that teaches someone how to value their lives and others' lives. So the power of positivity, the power of positive thought, that's all important to me. And that is the work that I want to create. That is the work that I want to share with people. So being a good reader, listening to some really good poetry, surrounding yourself with people who are smarter than you. Like, if you're the smartest person in the room, get out the room, right? Because there's nowhere for you to grow from that. So learn to be around people who know things that you don't, so that you can learn that and take it on to the next group, right? And sometimes trying things that are hard for you, sometimes that will also help you grow, and it's also really good medicine. Because if you keep doing the same things that's easier, you become, in the words of folks in IT, you become looped. You just, you know, and there's nothing about that that's good. You know, you see the dog chasing the tail, it's okay, but it's better to go up and move forward. So I'm going to stop talking now because I'm watching my audience, and you're not moving anymore, and I don't want anybody to go to sleep. So I would love for you to ask questions. And it's 7:35. I had this clock up here, so I didn't even have to set a timer. Yes! But I would love for you to ask questions and tell me who you are when you ask a question, and if you're in an arts program or a biology program or a medical program. I would love to hear from you. Okay, somebody asked a question. I got on cute shoes. Come on.
Can you tell more about the individuals and your choices?
Yes, absolutely. This is Danielle. She is my daughter-in-love. Well, let's go with Sydney. This is Sydney. She is, I call her my little sister. This piece is called Ginger because she is a black ginger. She's born with red hair, a face full of freckles, and she's a muralist, an illustrator, a painter, a fine artist. But right now she's the only woman of color who is a creator of a mural festival called Blackout Walls. It was in Detroit this year. It's moving to either Oakland or San Francisco this year in 2022. And so you don't hear about a lot of graffiti artists or mural artists who are women, first of all. They're typically young white men. And you don't hear about the women of color who are doing it. There is a hashtag on Instagram called Women on Walls. And so that, you know, there's a group of women who go around and do really beautiful murals. We call them murals now. We used to call them graffiti. But we need license and tags so we don't get arrested now. But she's done really well, and she's got the largest mural in Detroit called The Woman with the D Earring. If you haven't been to Detroit, it's in the Tech Town New Center area, and it's really beautiful. And Blackout Walls Murals is on Instagram, and they have a map so you can find them. But there were people invited from all over the country to participate in that, and buildings were donated for them to do the mural festival, and it's absolutely beautiful. She's on Instagram, and it's not BLAC, it's BLK, Blackout Walls. And her name is Sydney G. James. She's on Instagram. She's amazing. This is my brother Kenneth. He is the oldest, and his assignment was Chevrolet. That is his healing herb. This is Corin. Corin is one of our youngest, and she is assigned to St. John's Wort. So she is the person who checks on everybody. She lives in Mexico right now. She moved from Mexico to Spain, from Spain to Mexico. And so she actually makes sure that we're all doing okay. When she comes home, she sits with each and every one of us. And so that was, I put her in the medicine cabinet, and I put my brother JR on the medicine cabinet because they're sort of like the baby girl and the baby boy. And the way they act in the family is that way. I went to Saugatuck, Michigan to a lavender farm. And I did yoga in the middle of the lavender field, which was the most beautiful. Like, it was sort of like if you've ever seen The Wizard of Oz, the land of the poppies. It was like, whoa, this is amazing. Where Dorothy goes, if you don't, never mind. But the lavender was great. And so I collected a whole bunch of lavender and flowers while I was there in Douglas, Michigan, and Saugatuck. And then I also went to a lot of antique malls and gathered up a lot of really old medicine packaging. And so I've been filling up my medicine cabinets with really old stuff that no one really uses anymore. With the exception of Vicks. I think people still use Vicks. It has eucalyptus in it. But that old ointment can down at the bottom, it's a really, really old can. Yeah. And so I just wanted to talk about the old ways that our family used to take care of us. And then in these bottles, it has a lot of natural herbs in it that I got out of the garden from the lavender fields. And I put like turmeric, cayenne pepper. Let me tell you, if you take some cayenne with some fresh ginger juice and some fresh lemon, now that's a shot. It will knock out all of the stuff in your chesticles. You got to take it for a good 3 days, but it's like, listen. I don't know how many people drink tequila, but you might make that same face. It's like, but it's so good for you. It gets rid of phlegm in your body, right? It helps, lemon cleans out everything. If you spill lemon juice on a table, it doesn't have that stickiness, right? That if you spill orange juice, it still has. Lemon is a good cleaner of things, right? So keeping your colon clean, keeping your gut clean, and also making sure that you don't have any phlegm in your body. That's what cayenne and things like ginger and turmeric and what's another one? Cinnamon, those kind of things activate heat in your body to get stuff out. So I'm learning things about herbs, and so it's really interesting. So I put that in these bottles and put them in the medicine cabinet. This is my sister, Kim. I think I talked about her. My brother JR is there's a big one with a halo around his head, and he is a white horehound, and so he's on a medicine cabinet door that someone gave me. And then I have my 3 children are the larger pieces on the wall. That's Mario, Denise, and Sudini. Denise is my oldest, Mario is my middle, and Sudini is the youngest. And so this is the work that you're seeing. It's all family. You know, which includes those that I have chosen, and then those that you can't choose, like their family. Like, you don't get to choose family. And so I consider all of them medicine, and I haven't lost a sibling or a child, so I've been blessed in that way, which is nice. I'm like, y'all need to duck and dodge like you in the Matrix, because better not nobody die. Like, when my brother tells me he's going somewhere, I'm like, don't touch nothing. Put your mask on, I ain't playing. And so, you know, this is my family. And so I have another show coming up soon, and it's called What is Medicine, where I'm going to be painting prescription bottles and painting herbs and painting still lifes as I talk about medicine. But I also have some small portraits that I'm doing of people who are poets, who are dancers, who own bookstores, and also who are medical doctors that live in the community with me. So it's talking about what is medicine, and they are the medicine. So, any other questions? Yes?
I'm Adele, and I'm currently a graphic design student. I was just wondering, do you have any advice for new artists?
Yes, I do. My advice is keep going, right? I think somebody asked me earlier about it. A similar question to yours. Practice doesn't make perfect, because I don't believe in that. Practice makes progress. The more you do, the more you'll learn. the more, like my mom always say, live long enough, you'll see. So the key is keep going, keep creating, keep moving. Make sure you keep people around you who teach you things that you don't know. Keep learning. Like when you leave here, it doesn't stop, right? And also become more interdisciplinary. Like don't just do graphic design, understand the coding and understand advertising. Be an art director. Come up with the brand. Don't just be the person who makes the label or the logo. Like, wear more than one hat, if you will. So learn things. Like, become familiar with photography because graphic designers need a lot of it. You can change a lot of it in Photoshop, but learn the programs beyond what you're taught in school. This is a lovely stepping stone. This helps someone get to a certain level where you can be paid as a professional once you get the degree. But don't stop there. Somebody had a question over here. Yes?
I was just wondering, do you have any major artistic inspirations? Like people that really inspired you?
All these people inspire me. My major, that's like asking an artist what's your favorite color. Or a musician is like, who's your favorite? Like, just let me tell you, so many people. And so many things. Like, I use music as a muse. My life is an inspiration. And I tell people I live through a constant state of gratitude, grace, and grief. I'm thankful that I have this ability. I'm thankful that this is my language and this is how I communicate. I'm thankful that I'm still here to continue to do it, and I'm thankful for the people who are around me. And the people I'm around make me want to make more, right? My son is an amazing artist. I get excited when I see his work, or my best friend's poetry, or my daughter's work, who's 21. I'm like, oh, what you working on now? So it's like they're my inspiration. There are some artists that I can fan out over, right? And that could be Carrie James Marshall, or thinking about Frida Kahlo's life and Kathy Kollwitz, but also Rumi, right? And also other people who are philosophers that you read about, James Baldwin, Toni Morrison, like Jay Dilla. So there's so many ways that I am influenced. I'm open to the world because it's so beautiful. And I think when you live, you should have a great adventure. And if you don't, you're not really living. So I don't limit myself to the visual arts because I don't separate the music art from what I'm doing. I don't separate the dancing of Bill T. Jones and Judith Jamison from what I'm doing. Even when I'm watching a basketball game, like there's an art to the sport, right? That becomes like a dance. And you're like, wow, like you look at those muscles, like dang. And then it makes me want to go home and like really draw. And like in my mind, I think my hand looks like the Hulk because I've been drawing so much, you know? So I'm just thinking about the idea that I will continue to make. And when I see a really good opera, it makes me want to go home and really do some work. I don't know what it is, but sometimes when you see a good performance or you listen to a really good album, you're like, dang. And then you're like, okay, so my superpower is different than your superpower, but we both got superpowers. So I'm gonna go ahead and put my cape on and I'm gonna go over here and do my thing. And so it's really, my inspiration is just living every day, waking up and being thankful and honoring people around me and honoring my gift. Yes?
I'm curious how you start an exhibition like this. Like when you got the idea, did you know exactly where you wanted to go with it, or did it change kind of throughout the process as you were creating these pieces?
No, I had a conversation with myself, you know, after the Blackbird series and after my father died. I was like, I'm thriving through a pandemic, and other people around me are also thriving through this viral pandemic. And we are sick, and we can't seem to heal ourselves. We are on year 3, and we in here with stuff on, right? And we have social distancing, and we have no touching, and we have people who are still dying. And so how do we get to the point where we realize that this is some serious stuff? We are in a real situation. And people who are, we're not only living through a viral pandemic, but people are out here in these streets killing folks while we do a viral pandemic. You really gonna steal my car and you ain't scared of COVID? You really gonna shoot me and you ain't scared of COVID? You really out here with a gun shooting people during COVID? Can everybody sit down, have several seats, take a damn nap for 6 months, and so we can get done? And not necessarily get back to normal, but so we can heal. And so when Denise talked to me about it, I already was working on the idea of what is sickness and how do we heal from it. So I was going to do a couple pieces, and then I got dropped in this black hole of I can't stop, I got to keep going. And so I can't just draw one sibling, because then the other is going to find out and it's over. I got a lot of siblings, you know what I'm saying? And once I post it, you're like, you going to draw her? And then my baby brother called me and he was like we have sibling Sunday text. I don't know how many of you have a lot of us. There's a lot of us. But how you connect with your siblings when you're adults and everybody moves somewhere, one moves to Spain and the other one's in Virginia, and someone is really lost, but they really here, but they ain't lost in plain sight. So you have to figure out a way to connect with each other. So we have these sibling texts every Sunday. And so I was posting the pictures as I was working on them, and they were all commenting, oh, okay, that looks good. So my baby brother was like, you better fix my hairline. I was like, bruh, your hairline moving back ain't got nothing to do with my drawing. You 49, it is running off your face. I said, now what I can do is I can give you a little, I can put a little shade up on there for you if that's what you want. That's not what the pictures say. I'm just drawing what I see, bro. I'm trying to be honest here. I'm just saying. But, so it's really interesting that I had the concept and I'm not finished with it. I'm still thinking about healing and medicine. So it's not something I'm going to let go of for a while. But that's how I get my concepts. It's conversations and things that bother me about the world that I live in, and I have to say it. But it's also a way to be an activist with this voice. Because this is my armor, it's also my weaponry, but it's also my language. And medicine, too. I said to somebody, if I didn't do art, I'd probably kill people. So I'm probably really good at not being a vigilante. Because I would be like, there's some really stupid, evil people that need to be taken out from Thanos. But Thanos didn't have, he was just taking he took Black Panther, man, come on. So I'm like, you gotta pick the ones that really need to go, because there's some folks that really need to be checked out. So I'm just saving lives. I'm gonna stick with this, because I'm really good at this. I don't know how good I'd be as a vigilante. I'd probably have to have some training, and I'd probably have to lift some weights, and I ain't doing all that running. If you run, I'm like, go ahead, I'm not chasing you. So I think my concepts come from what's in my heart, what's in my head, and how I can move and speak with my work. So that's the activism that comes out. Yes?
This piece is very personal, and so I'm curious. You mentioned after your father passed that you had bought yourself flowers every other week or so. Are any of these flowers represented throughout the piece?
No, I would let the flowers get to the point where they started wilting, and I decided to use them as baths, right? I put them in the bath water, and I bought bath bombs, so the water would change colors, and it smelled really good, so it was like having a personal spa. If you go to a spa, they put the little roses in there, and then they're going to charge you $11,000, when you can just buy your own stuff. Get you some essential oils, put it in the bath water. 10 drops will just make the whole house smell great. And you get those roses and those really beautiful flowers, and you take a bath in them, and you just sit in there, right? Yeah. And so they used to do it in Egypt. Why can't we do it in Detroit? So I wanted to heal myself and give myself permission to take a break and to grieve, right? But also to be loved by myself and not thinking about it in a romantic way, but to romantically, like Eartha Kitt says, I'm in love with myself and I will occasionally want to share it with somebody else, the love I have for me with you. But I want to make sure that I was my healer, because I just I couldn't move, and I wasn't catatonic about it, but it hurt, and I'm like, wow, this is heavy. Like, grief comes in waves, and sometimes it hits you, and you're like, I didn't see that coming today. Can you give me a warning, guys? Like, I got stuff to do. Oh, Lord, I got to cry again. So it's, it's like you can allow yourself to sit with it. Mindfulness teaches you to sit with it. Let it process what's happening, and then let it go, or let it go away. Because after a while, the tears will stop, and then they might come back, and that's okay too. It's human. Like, I'd rather feel something than nothing at all. So these flowers are from the lavender farm that I went to this summer. It was just a really beautiful trip. And so that was healing as well. If you've ever done yoga on a lavender farm, let me tell you. And then they had lavender scones. I'm like, I'm going to eat the stuff. I'm going to lay in the stuff. I'm going to smell the stuff. It was just amazing. And then I left with bundles of it, and then I posted online and got them bundles. And if you don't get it, it's okay. It's about fake hair, but it's funny. But it was really great to have bundles of rosemary, fresh lavender in my car on the way back home to Detroit from a lavender farm. It was great. Any other questions? Yes.
I'm curious about the process of individually spending time looking at each of your family members as medicine as you were drawing them, and pulling that medicine out of them and seeing them through that lens as you were drawing each of them, if and how that might have altered your perception of each individual through the process, and or how they responded to their assignment of each medicine, and if it altered their perception of self through that process.
Well, I haven't asked them if it's altered them from, they just kind of took it, like, oh, she's doing her thing again, we're going to let her do her thing, it's cool, this looks great, this is, but I do feel that me doing portraits of them has allowed them to see how I feel about them, right? My sister cried. My other sister, who doesn't often talk to me, the one that's 2 years older than me, every now and then she'll text, she goes, send me the picture again. You know, I'm like, okay, girl, I'm seeing you the portrait one more time. You know? And then my brothers, their wives took their pictures, so the view that you get is how they're looking at their wives. So it's sort of like a love in their eyes, right? Because they took their pictures. My sisters took their own pictures, with the exception of Corin, who's in the medicine cabinet. I took her picture. But everybody else took their own pictures, so it's how they see themselves, too. And so that was really interesting. And then when I assigned them a healing herb, they was like, oh, that's deep, girl. So, it's sort of like they were like, that's how you see me? That's nice. So it was really great. And then in the Sibling Sunday text, I would put my progress, and I would put the herbal assignment. And so as I worked on their portraits, they would get the text to see the pictures and the herbs, and they'd be like, okay, yeah, you right. He is this, or she is that. I see what you did there. So it was really nice to see their response, but also for them to know how I see them and how I feel about them. Like, you are medicine. You do have a superpower in this family. And your responsibility, with great power comes great responsibility. You need to keep checking on us. You need to keep doing this. You need to keep doing this. And so it was really nice to hear how they felt about their portraits. None of them have seen them in person, with the exception of Kim. Corin saw them, Kim saw them, but Dania, Sharnita, Kenneth, JR, none of them have seen them in person. And Sydney James hasn't even seen her portrait in person. So none of them have seen the actual piece. They've seen them online, they've seen them from text, but there's a difference from looking in an art history book or a phone or here than when you can see an actual piece in your face. Like Sudney hasn't even seen her portrait. Mario hasn't seen his. They've seen, Mario did see the beginning of his, and Danielle has seen hers. And so, yeah, it's interesting how people, there's another quote that I have from Anais Nin, who's a great writer. She was Henry Miller's lover. I think it's the Delta of Venus. But one of her quotes is, "We never see things how they are. We see things how we actually are." So this is my perception of my siblings based on how I see them. So it was never intended to be a perfect portrait of them in the way that is photorealistic. It's how I feel about them first, and then that turns into how I see them. Any other questions? Guys, it's 7:58. Look at us. Look at us stopping on time. Who's a Virgo? Amen. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for being more than 5 bodies in the auditorium. And I appreciate the questions, and please stop by and write in the book, what is your medicine? Or who is your medicine? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sabrina. That was beautiful. Thank you all for coming tonight. There will be a meet and greet with the artist in the Vapor Room following this, so please join us over there. Unfortunately, no food or drink because of COVID, so it's a human experience exclusively. So please come and check out the work if you haven't done so, and if you have done so and just want to come hang out with Sabrina and talk to her personally, please come join us over there for a few minutes.
And I want to give you something to use against COVID. If you get a bad grade in something, or if you don't feel well, or if you piss somebody off, just be like, it's COVID. It's COVID. Like, give yourself some grace, because it's COVID.
Thank you, everyone.
Because of COVID. So everything is BC because of COVID.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. If you want, I'll be over again. I ordered them from, listen, there's a brand called Irregular Choice, and that's where they come from. And look at the bottom. They're really beautiful the way, but go on their website. It's called Irregular Choice, and it's IRREG. But I love them because they were artistic shoes. Like, you can't, like, they're kind of expensive too, but save your money, get the shoes. And their packaging is just as pretty as the shoes.
Are you going to make some time to go to the Vapor Room?
They are so pretty. But my daddy was fine. My mama